Welcome to the Pulpit View podcast. My name is Stephen Garrett. With over 20 years of experience in leadership, family, and ministry, I've asked some brothers to come join me and have a conversation of what it takes to bring balance to each. Why don't you join me on this journey? Let's go. Hello, how's everyone doing today? I am here today, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of talking to the great pastor of Beulah #1 here in Notasulga, that of Gregory, Sutton. He's not just a businessman, but he's also a loving father and husband. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself on this episode of the Pulpit View, tell him a little bit about himself, and then we're going to get on into the questions.
Well, first of all and foremost, I want to tell you thank you for inviting me here to share the little bit that I do know about ministry and business. I'm Pastor Gregory Sutton. I'm the pastor of the Beulah #1 Missionary Baptist Church right here in Notasulga, Alabama. I'm the husband, and I got 2 daughters. I'm just basically a servant, man. I serve as pastor, I serve as husband, I serve as father, I serve as barber. I just serve the community, my family, everybody. I'm just serving, Doc, and I'm just glad to be here. Thanks a lot.
Amen, amen. Pastor, one of the reasons that I really reached out to you, and I love your spirit, but also our similar backgrounds. Okay. From being a barber, owning a business that requires you serving the community, but also being in a brotherhood that requires you serving the community.
That's right.
And both sometimes can be a little daunting.
Gotcha. Right.
Recently, we just celebrated Easter, and for us as pastors, that's a hectic day.
Oh, man.
And then us as barbers, that's
right.
a hectic day. So there's this balance that we have to learn how to manage between these 2 different worlds. And so one of the reasons that we started this podcast, and I want to have you on here, is because a lot of our brothers and even some of our sisters, they're struggling in this world with finding that flow between how do you manage being a leader in the community? How do you manage being a leader in your family, someone that your family can go to, but also your daily ministry activity? And so I'm not going to hold you long today, but I do want to ask a few questions. How long have you and your wife had to juggle ministry and marriage together?
My wife and our thing is kind of unique because I was her husband before I was preaching.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And she was my wife before I came into the ministry. So basically, we've only been in the ministry together for 18 years, but we've been married 25.
That's awesome.
So basically, my concept was that, hey, when I got called, she was like nervous a little bit. Oh, you're finna preach? How do I do? I said, you don't have to be a preacher's wife. You just got to be my wife. So basically, I owe all the success of the family and a lot of stuff to her, man. She's really the rock behind a lot of stuff that we do, man.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of our testimony. I think I like your origin story because we came in as I was already preaching when I met my wife. Was not pastoring. Had no thought I'd become a pastor.
Gotcha.
But she comes from a pastoring background. Her father was a pastor and a minister. So there was a flow that walked in with that. Mm-hmm. But I think sometimes it's each story has their different struggle.
Right.
Because on my side, you've been reared up in this way. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of think that this is the way that it's going to go.
Gotcha.
And then from your side, well, we've never experienced this before, so we don't know. There's a little bit of fear of the unknown.
That's right.
That's getting ready to come.
That's right.
And so just give me I guess a little bit of insight on your day-to-day dealing with so many different hats that you wear.
Well, basically, and like I said earlier, my wife does a lot with my daughters, and but basically my schedule has to be planned. Mm-hmm. I gotta prioritize. So basically, like just say for instance, a sermon prep. Basically, what I try to do is, like as soon as I leave the pulpit Sunday, my mind is thinking, So, because I know I have a busy week of barbering. So basically, I try to get a sermon thought on Sunday, and I try to stay with it all week. Now, does that work all the time? Sometimes I slip, and then I feel so bad when I don't. But when it comes down to the barbershop, now I'm better organized after COVID than I were before COVID.
Yeah.
Because before COVID, I just took all walk-ins, people just coming in, and they just bummed. But now I have the Barber's app that I use, and now I'm just more organized, and really it's better for me.
Yeah. Doesn't give us some of them ulcers that we were.
I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
It did. I guess another question is that I have, and you kind of laid into this.
Okay.
What are some challenges you see when it comes to maintaining that healthy spiritual family and ministry dynamic?
As I said earlier, I think it's all about prioritizing. You know, what's essential, what's important. And I live by the motto that my family ministry is first. That's my first ministry. And because I live by the biblical principle where it says, you know, if a man cannot pastor, leader, bishop cannot rule his home, how can he rule the house of God?
Yeah.
So basically, what I try to do is make sure that they come first.
Yeah.
For an example, man, I'll never forget when I first went to my second church that I pastored. I got there, you know, you have your annual days, you have your revivals already set up. So they had a revival set up.
Yeah.
And my wife was graduating from Troy on the night of a revival night.
Ooh.
So I called the officers in, and we had a meeting. I said, look, we only have two choices in this matter. Either we can keep the date set like it is and we can have the revival and I won't be here, or we can change the date because I'm going to my wife's graduation night.
Yeah.
And so I think that set a precedent for them to know, hey, they were impressed because this man literally is putting his family first. So that's basically. And then, you know, like the question you were saying about juggling it all together, I just have to know that they come first. And my wife does a great job of, we take turns in certain areas with my daughter's activities. And she's not going to miss anything. And God has blessed us that she's always had a job or profession that she was able to be free and to do those things. No Saturday work, no late night work. She's always been there with them. So
I love it.
I love it.
I think that's one of the probably more difficult things for a lot of people to deal with. You know, there's a saying that the church almost becomes a mistress.
Oh man,
and so
you're right.
We always talk about it at my house. One of the reasons, that's the reason I love you said we have only two options here. We can change the date, and I'll be here. Or we keep the date and I'm not going to be here. Because for us, it's very similar because not only does it teach our church precedents.
That's right.
But it also helps ensure to our loved ones precedents.
Right.
Once they see it, they're like, okay, I can be a little bit lenient over here.
Yeah.
Because I know that when it counts, they're going to be here. I tell everyone one of the biggest days that I recognized that there was a shift that needed to happen in my family was when I started pastoring my second church. And my wife, she called me one day and she told me, she said, babe, she just was off that day. And she said, babe, I just had to realize that you weren't my savior. And boy, listen, even though everything she said was 100% right, for the male ego,
gotcha.
Oh, that was a slap in the face. And I thought that everything was right. And there was these moments that she was like, I'm expecting these things.
Gotcha.
And what I had to recognize was you are there when it counts.
That's right.
But that I have to share you to some extent.
Gotcha.
And so I think when we're there, there's a little bit of leniency when we can't be there.
I agree totally.
And I think you have a totally different dynamic. I got one girl, you're a girl dad.
I got two daughters.
Yeah, them girls, they don't let up. them boys, I think, are a little bit more lenient on the daddies.
And I think too, though, not to cut you off, but I think too, though, that's the same thing in business.
Yeah.
You know, if your customers know that, hey, you got an appointment, I'm on time, I'm gonna do what you need for me to do, they're more lenient with you when you say, hey, I got to do something with my family this week.
Yeah.
You know, especially those that really understand it.
Yeah.
And you're always there for them.
Yeah.
So basically, like you said earlier, with your wife and kids, they know that it has to be something real important if I have to do something at church.
Yeah. Well, yes, another question is, as a pastor, you've been going into this thing now for about 18 years in ministry. That's right. There are some mistakes that's been made along the way. There's some growth. There's some successes. And I like something Steve Harvey says. He says, lessons are never learned in the win.
That's right.
They're always learned in the failure. I know I got a bunch of lessons that I've learned during my years. Would you give us some lessons or some advice? Let's say you could have a conversation with your yesterday self, and you could say, "Hey, listen, man, this is the one thing I need you to learn early, so we don't have to take this knocking in the head."
It's a lot of them. You know, the first thing that I would probably say to a younger me, preaching and trying to preach, I would say the first thing I would want myself to do is not be so concerned about preaching. Be more concerned about just feeding and developing yourself.
Oh, that's good.
And let this start. I probably would go back and, when you first start preaching, everybody calling you, they didn't want you to preach everywhere. So I would probably say, look, I don't want to take all these dates. I need to just go and just read, study my Bible. Just build my spiritual man. Because I think that when the overflow comes from what you learn. I dealt with a little burnout in the beginning of, didn't have messages to preach. Man, screaming, trying to preach, and I didn't have enough in me.
Yeah.
So I would say just fill yourself up. And then I would say to my younger self, keep your character. Keep yourself clean from it. I made mistakes early in ministry, man. It's character flaws.
Yeah.
And I thank God that his grace was sufficient in those areas. I would just say, man, just work on yourself. Make sure that you got gas in your tank and not try to, because when you're weak, things happen. You can fall.
Yeah.
So I just say, just it's so many stuff that I could do. Lesson I learned so many lessons, man.
You're not the only one. And I think part of that comes from the fact that we as pastors and preachers, we deal with this struggle of thinking there's not enough time. So when we're getting the engagements, we feel like I have to almost take everything.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever missed an engagement, and it killed me. And I said, I'm restructuring everything from then on out. Yeah. I had booked myself for 2 different revivals on the same night. And I had to call somebody and tell them I couldn't make it. And one was a 1-night revival. The other was a 2-night revival, a 3-night revival. And so here's how I found out. When I put it in put the stuff in, somehow I got it mixed up with another revival for the next month. And I gave the wrong dates. And so I'm thinking I got revival this week, another revival next month.
Gotcha.
No, I had revival this week, revival the same week, and another next month. And so I had to call, and it killed me. And I'm grateful for the pastor that I had to preach the revival. Both were very understanding.
Gotcha.
Both were like, now you understand what ministry feels like.
Exactly.
Because you will overextend yourself.
Really?
And they accepted my apology. But boy, that was one, because I just felt like, man, listen, these opportunities are opening. You got to get it. Yeah, you got to get it.
Can't say no.
You can't say no.
But I had to learn that no is good.
Yeah.
I can't works, man.
Yeah,
You know, just basically just say, look, I can't do it.
And no doesn't always detail that I don't want to.
That's right.
No might mean that I'm not going to give you my best. So give me the availability to come back. Let this opportunity be extended later.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I love it. I guess another question I would have is, as a leader, what are some challenges that you might say were defining moments in your leadership style, or family, or ministry dynamic in a whole, that you as you look back, you're like, this is what shifted me to being more proactive, taking more of a priority role in certain areas. Okay. What are some areas? You don't have to be too candid, but if you want, what is something that you can say? It was this, or these were these moments that were defining moments.
Now, I tell you really what really helped me, and I can go back to the beginning of when I first started pastoring a church. I had mentors, not going to call any name, but I had mentors, and not my pastor, but he was a great mentor. He let me be free and told me, hey, you got to be yourself, son. And matter of fact, shout out to my pastor, Pastor Melvin Owens of the Mount Zion Missionary Church. He's outstanding in every way.
Outstanding president too. Yeah.
Gotcha. But he was great. But then I had other mentors that had a different style than he had in pastoring. And I really had to develop and try to get my own style. I'll never forget, I was trying to lead the church. I first pastored the church. And I was trying to lead them the way I saw my mentors lead. And I'm not necessarily a pastor that's in everything. So I had to understand, and I think God just led me to the passage where Moses' father told him, say, look, if you don't, get you some help.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started. The defining moment I'll never forget, I was trying to do a lot of stuff at the church. And all of a sudden it just said, man, you're going to get broke. Your spirit is down. You're not going to survive like this.
Yeah.
And we had a project at the first church I pastored. We're trying to do a roof. I'm going up there. I'm buying chairs. I'm doing all this stuff. And the deacon's looking at me like, this little young joker, he going to kill you. And that's when I knew then I had to pray and seek the guidance of God to be able to delegate and to be able to release all this stuff and trust God, that God led me to an individual. He says, okay, this is a person that would be ideal to be the leader of your church Steve ministry.
Yeah.
This person would be ideal to lead in this ministry. And when I started listening to God, he just started, people's heads started poking out.
Yeah.
And then I had time to really do, like Paul told Timothy, man, study and
show thyself approved
and do what you need to do.
Yeah. I must agree with you. That's one of the things that my pastor, the late Pastor Noble, said to me. He said, Reverend, he said, you're going to have people.
You gotta have
it. And if you utilize them properly, it makes the job a little bit easier.
You're right. You're right.
And so even when you feel like, I always remember him saying, even when you feel like you're doing it by yourself, you're not. And
That's right.
So he said, if you lean on God to show you the right people, he'll put the right people to do the right work.
He'll do it.
Yeah.
And just to piggyback on what you said, the late Pastor Eugene Cooks was so great with me. I'll never forget, I was getting ready to do a meeting at my church. And he wanted me to cut his hair. I was cutting his hair. And I said, man, I got to have a meeting. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get here. He said, look, preach. He said, God already worked that thing out before you get there. And every meeting I've had since the first pastoring all the way to now, it's like God always he goes before us, he's with us, and then he leaves behind us, man.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. I think that's one of the best blessings of barbering that I've received is the pastors and the other leaders that I get to cut and have within my chair and the communication.
Those
the
nuggets,
not
to cut you off, but those nuggets they give you sitting in your chair. It's nothing like cutting your pastor's hair.
Yeah.
You get in that. It's like you can sit at lunch and eat with him, or you can be in a business meeting with him, or you can just be out. But sitting in that chair, where they can really, really just throw stuff at you, man. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. And I think it's a blessing too to have people coming through that shop that have different perspectives on ministry and different ideas about what church is about. So it helps us in preaching and ministry because we have to deal with people in that job. That builds our strength so that we can face the challenges in ministry and in life. Because only what you do for the Lord will count, but everything is ministry.
You're 100% right, Doc. This is good. Okay. I guess another question I would ask is, what are some things now, because we're coming on the other end of the pandemic.
Okay.
And I know for me, as many other pastors, many went from members to no members. Gotcha. We went from having to go virtual. We went to having to go in person to strictly virtual, and changing some things up. What are some lessons that you gleaned from the pandemic? Because like you said about the barbershop earlier, that was one thing that changed for me in the barbershop arena, was I became more prioritized, more disciplined, because I had this app that helped. But even in the church atmosphere, we cut a lot of fat that we did not recognize was fat.
That's right.
And we thought it was necessary.
That's right.
It just shifted.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have to do the work that to show folk that these things weren't necessary.
Right.
They were coming to me. So what's some things that probably the pandemic has helped you to see during this time?
Man, basically, it goes back to exactly what you just said. The pandemic showed us that some things were just not necessary. It was something that we were doing out of, I believe, and I'm a traditional guy, but I think a lot of things we were doing just because we just say we've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
But basically, I think after the pandemic, it just showed me that really the style of preaching is not important anymore. It's more about the substance of what you're saying now. Because we had to sit in front of that phone or whatever you had to record yourself, man, and you just had to sit there, and you couldn't have the call and response like you had. People couldn't say amen to you. They could write it in there, they could do it, you can see it later on, but you literally had to sit there and say, hey, I got to really, really stand on the word of God. And it helped me in my study prep, and it helped me in my preparation, and it just helped me to say, look, I can be what God called me to be, and be authentic in what I'm doing. And basically, now that we come back to church, it's totally different, man. People are excited to be back in church.
Yeah. Feel like those that are back were yearning for it. I think it also gave us a fresh start with some folk.
Gotcha.
I guess a couple more questions I have for you is I know that it can sometimes feel like either there's not enough of you, or that, I don't know if you remember the movie Multiplicity, but that you need at least 5 more of you to get all the jobs done.
Gotcha.
So I guess, what are some specific ways that you might manage the load? And I know you said, like my wife, she's pivotal. I know your wife is away, but personally, because I think one of the things that we don't deal with in our churches a lot is sabbaticals, time away, taking those mental breaks, because it's a mental load. From being a barber to a pastor, you know what it is. Folk are pouring into you. They're telling you are some people's best friend.
Gotcha.
I remember a client of mine saying, Stephen, you're the longest relationship I've ever had.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know if you understand it. I've been with my wife 5 years. He said, I've been with you 14.
Gotcha.
He said,
Yes, sir.
and so we get to share, and then we have the losses that we had to take during that time.
Gotcha.
So I guess one of the questions I would have, what are some of the ways you've learned to manage not being always enough at the times you need to be, that you don't fall under that pressure?
I think to try to answer that question, this is what I think is very important, and this is what I think helps me into balancing. I try not to have too much of one thing. Okay. I may wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to drink a cup of coffee and I'm going to read a book or something. I may do that. I may wake up in the morning and say, hell, I'm going to do something totally different. Because I think if my thing was, if I'm just all work and no play, if I'm all study, all reading, all Bible every day, 24/7, I've got to do Netflix. I watch a movie. I got to go and do some blues music. I got to hear some R&B.
Yeah.
I got to do all of those things, man, to keep my sanity. That's why I don't get burned out, because I had to learn, man, that this is not my stuff.
Yeah.
This ain't mine.
Yeah.
These are God's people. He allowed me to pastor. I'm just a steward of the stuff that he's given me to be overseer of. My wife and kids, they belong to God. The finances that I have belong to God. This barbershop belongs to God. This church belongs to God. I belong to God. So basically what I try to do is, okay, I'm gonna listen to something different. I'm gonna ride off and do something different, because I think that's the way we keep it left. And in really doing that, it has helped my preaching. It has helped my pastoring. It's helped me to be able to deal with people, because I'm not only just listening to what they listening to, I'm learning so that I can be able to relate to them, to the members. Or the members, they not listening to gospel every 24/7.
Listen,
they not, man.
I'll tell you,
man,
when
you gonna get me in trouble. Man,
no,
folks gonna find out I've been listening to everything.
Listen,
I might put on Tupac, man.
If they're with me, they already know you listen to everything, because if they're friends with me, I told my church I just started pastoring at Bethlehem. Anthony Hamilton came to do a concert in Columbus. I said, now listen, when y'all see me, I need you to understand something. I said, Fred Hammond is not what me and my wife was listening to. We got 5 kids.
I said, that's great. I didn't know you had 5.
Man,
awesome, man.
Five. We got 14-year-old. Twin,
no, you
11-year-old.
Listen to,
Kurt Franklin has not been the only thing on our radio. I was in the gym last week, and one of the coaches at the gym, man, what you listening to? Every time I see you come in, you just got your headphones on, you go to work. What you listening to? And he knows I'm a preacher. I said, now listen, don't listen to this. I said, because I said, you're going to judge me if I still listen to Benny Siegel. I'm like, listen, but we have to have that balance.
That's it, man.
Within it. And one of the reasons that I encouraged this platform is because we are out here thinking that you have to be one-sided.
No.
And I remember one day there was an issue at a church I was pastoring. My wife, she likes wearing heels. Mm-hmm. And so someone said to me, well, Pastor, I don't know. The way you be talking about your wife. This was another preacher. He said, the way you be talking about your wife, it just got some of the members feeling some type of way. I said, I understand. That next Sunday, she came in with some heels I liked on. I went and I said, y'all just clap for Sister Gary. I was like, I praise God for her. I said, y'all clap because she helps keep your pastor's sanity while I clap for these heels she got on.
That's right.
There's a human side to us.
Man, come on.
That I don't think is sometimes recognizable.
That's right.
And I always tell people, especially pastors that I'm given the privilege to talk to when they're going through any stressful situation, is listen, you have to understand that, and going back to what Pastor Noble says, when he was here, he would tell me every Friday or every Saturday we pray, he'd tell me this. He said, Reverend, the only reason we get to do this is because of his grace.
That's right.
We're so imperfect.
That's right.
That if he didn't give us grace, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Grace.
And so I think we have to explain that to them. That there has to be that balance. There's going to be the Tupac side. Because me listening to Tupac allows me not to say what some of the stuff Tupac said.
That's right.
It's the balance that we need. It's the balance we need. Yeah, listen, here's the last question. It's the
man, I'm enjoying this, man.
Yeah, and we can continue having this conversation because I love these conversations.
Man, I'm enjoying this. I needed this. This is good.
I want to be a blessing to some young pastor, some senior pastor that's out there that is struggling. And one of the things that I hope they get from this, and if not just this, every podcast, there's no one particular way to do it.
No.
But one of the things that, again, I loved about your relationship, actually, and I'll tell you this, the first time that I just fell in love with the relationship you had with your wife and your children was at the Singing Pastors.
Okay.
You engaged in Singing Pastors.
But y'all jacked me. Y'all was jacking me so bad up there, man.
Listen.
Now you know what, Gary? Doc, y'all had me scared to come over there. Man, he joking the same. They picking at me bad, man.
Not you. They every year put me behind. Either I was behind Pastor Noble or in front of Pastor Noble.
Man.
And I was behind Pastor Curry or in front of Pastor Curry. And the other one that was intertwining was her. I said, y'all don't like me. I thought I was.
But you all really helped me to overcome a fear. Because man, I have never sung. I might do a little something when somebody's doing something, but man, you all really, really helped me in that area. But now, what you were saying about my kids?
It was beautiful. I loved it, and I told my wife. I said, when my kids get older, I said I'm gonna do that myself. Because at the time I had really younger kids, and I think your daughters were in college, and one of them came down. You
know what they told me? When I even cut you off, my daughter told me, she said, Dad, we're gonna be there. They're not gonna make you, because I'm already, I don't know if my wife told me that, your dad and everything. She said, Daddy, we coming down there with you. My oldest daughter, she said, She said,
we're gonna be there.
So they got daddy back, man. Them girls that will go for daddy. They will get out there, man. You talking about you want to get them upset? Mess with their daddy.
Mess with daddy if you want. And that's what I love. So from then on out, because I think that balance is shown through the actual life you live, right? It's not, you don't have to tell somebody that I'm at peace when you're at peace.
That's right.
You don't have to tell somebody that I'm happy and I'm joyous when you have a genuine smile and your response is joy.
You're right.
And on that day, I saw a brother that had just good family love. And I said, this is a brother that I just like to meet and know, because again, our lives are similar in so many ways when it comes to the surface level. Barber, own your own business, a pastor, wife, been married for a while, building family together, growing stuff together. And so for that, I was like, oh, this is just a beautiful sight. And I always appreciate seeing brothers that, especially our brothers, that change the norm of what is looked out.
That's
because you know what's told. You're in the barbershop, that most of us aren't this and aren't that. And to have that living contradicting story to what they say.
I learned that from some of my mentors in ministry. They said, look, man, they're not going to look at you. They're going to look at your family.
Yeah.
And if they see your family is in line with you, then they're gonna respect you for that.
Yeah.
They look at the wife, they look at the kids, they look at how they respond. They respond to you.
Yeah.
And that is really a blessing.
Yeah. And I guess here it is. the next major thing that I would ask is to help those out that may say, well, I'm at the point where I'm sinking. I can't tell you how many times my wife has gotten a message from, because she's in Pastor Wives groups.
Okay.
The time she's gotten messages where they have said in response, their response is, I'm ready to give up. Like, I don't know. One story that she won't mind me telling because nobody will know this person. But her husband was taking events on their anniversary.
Good night, man.
But it was a passion for ministry and probably overload in his area.
Gotcha.
And so the struggle that we deal with, and I think this is one of the things that I want to talk to. And she asked me, she said, babe, how, she was like, because they'll ask me, how did you get your husband to do this, do this? She said, and the problem is, I can't give him a reason because this was on you.
That's right.
And so I said, for me, I said, there's three things, and I want you to kind of share, if you can, just something out of these three that you may have done in your own life. I said, you must be strategic, selective, and understand what your determination of success is. I said, because I think the problem is we have the wrong definition of success.
Yeah.
And because we have the wrong definition of success, that's why we end up getting off course. It's just like setting a goal. If you know your goal is to cut 5 people in a day, 10 people, 15 people in a day,
that's right,
then you also know what you need to push out if your day is going to be determined as successful. But then you also know what customers, after cutting for so many years, I think I've been doing it for now. I've been cutting since 25 years. This year will be my 20th year owning a business.
Gotcha.
But after cutting, I know the calls that they're going to try to finagle a deal.
Gotcha.
I know the calls that they're man, Steve, can I get you next week? I know it. So I'm selective on who I take now. Right. But I'm also strategic on my cuts. And so how are you strategic, selective, and what's your definition of success? Because I think that helps our brothers out there to figure out if they can understand what success is in their household, they can become better. They can be better at being strategic and selective.
My definition of success came from my father. My father could cut hair. He could do a lot of different things, but he was the example of a basic individual. And the love and the what he showed us, he is the greatest man I've ever been around in my life.
Love it.
Never owned a business, never had a mansion, never had a lot of money in the bank, didn't have all of those things. But what he, he didn't graduate from high school. 8th grade is for the education he had. But he was the example of success I saw. And I found out at an early age, being successful is being a private success far greater than being a public success. Because I would rather be a private success with my family than to be a public success and a private failure.
Woo! Dog, you just gave a message there.
That's just a fact, man. Because he was a success. You know, he was just, he softball and stuff like that. He had his little firewood little deal he was doing, but it wasn't anything major he was doing. But we knew that he was a success to me. Because a lot of times we look at success by definition. That man that goes to work every day, take care of his family, and sits there and read the newspaper when he get off, he's successful. Because that's what he desired to be. Success is determined by what you think. I ain't trying to impress nobody, man. I don't care what nobody think no more, man. I'm successful because I know when I go home at night, I can look my wife in the eye and she said, hey, you've become the man that we've desired for you to be. And my daughters can look at me and say, hey, Daddy, you good. Yeah. And that's all the success I need. Yeah. That's good. That's real good. Because I told my wife one day, we were talking, and so
I said, one of the reasons that has pushed me to propel in certain areas, I said, because what you said, I look at my sons and I look at my daughter. I said, I have pushed them to go after their dreams. If they want to do something, I said, I one day woke up and recognized some of those areas I had not done. I said, so the determination of success in our house is loving one another and fulfilling these dreams, these goals.
That's right.
I said, and you're not doing that yourself, then you're failing them as an example of success.
Man, you said it, because see, this is I think that my philosophy now. This may not work for everybody, but I believe that if you're faithful in whatever you're doing, success finds you.
I love it.
It finds you, because I was faithful under my pastor, so I get a chance to lead now. I was faithful under my uncle cutting hair, and God opened the shop for me. Yeah. I wasn't looking for a barbershop. My uncle came to me and said, hey, I'm about to go to Opelika, so, I'm probably just going to stop. Do you want to take over this shop? I said, no, this is too much overhead for me. And God blessed me to get a little spot that I could grow and make it my own. So basically, I believe it was T.D. said one time, he said, a lot of times it seems like it's almost accidental when we fall into something, because our mind is so focused on making sure I do this one thing right, that when success, it shows up. When you find a person trying to do this and trying to do this and trying to do that and trying to be successful, you see a failure, man.
I got a personal saying that has kind of developed. I tell the young men in my shop when they start to stress out over where they are in life, I said, you're successful no matter where you are. I said, here's the problem.
That's right.
You might not be successful at what you want to be successful at. I said, if you stay on the couch, then that's what you want to do. And you're successful at staying on the couch. I said, if you... And that's my mentality, because me and my wife were talking one day and she just said something about it. We were listening to someone, a motivational speaker we listened to, and they were just talking about how there was this moment in their life where they weren't doing this, the wife was paying most of the bills. So you ain't never had it that bad. I can't say, I was reared to be a worker. I said, you might have to convince me to take time off before you have to convince me to get out there and go get it. I said, so you become successful at these areas. Because this is what you do.
Because you think about the greatest leader that we know. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a success, but his success was not the definition of what the world says success is. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to make a mistake, but Dr. King died without any insurance policy. He passed with no ownership of anything.
Didn't own a car.
So we thinking that the material things, but his legacy lives on because of the gift that God gave him for the world.
And the truth of the matter is, and I think you just mentioned that, which is probably the greatest highlight, is when your name has that much precedence. Those things that you don't have or you were not able to obtain. And I'm not telling nobody on here not to go make sure you get life insurance. But it does make way and open doors. There's a name that goes on. And I tell people, Jesus Christ had 12 disciples, 12 main disciples, over 500 that we know on the day he ascended that he told to wait.
Right.
I said only 120 folk out of the whole 500 stayed, including the 12 disciples stayed.
That's right.
I said, because most times folk are going to leave you, folk are going to scatter because they were there for the name.
Right.
But it shows you the level of your success about what people do with your name afterwards.
That's right.
And I tell people that is the crescendo, I would say, of a man's life. Is that at the end of the day, that name that my children carry.
That's right.
If it can open a door.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times and you said it about your dad. My dad, very similar. He cut hair, and my dad owned shops after shop. Like, my dad was a very well-to-do businessman when it came to that in Detroit. Known well, but the struggle is when he left us, we did not have the wealth that was acquired during that time because he didn't understand it. But that name and that gift still lives on.
It lives.
It lives. I tell everybody, I cannot at one day criticize my dad for not doing this or not doing that, because this gift of cutting hair is there. It's there, and it's paid bills. Wow.
It'll pay some bills.
It pays some bills. I tell anybody, now listen.
And it's transported.
Yeah.
It goes anywhere.
Goes
as
anywhere.
long as you go there, it's there.
Yeah. And I just got to
You
tell
sit
a
up on
friend.
a tree and do that.
I told the friend, I said, listen, I don't care if you don't have a license with it. I said, if you are willing to do what you got to go do, I was like, here's what it is. I said, some of the greatest barbers of our time. Yeah. I said that we know had cut celebrities. I said, this start off with license. They start off in the bedroom of their house, the bathroom of their house. I said they got big, and then they went back and got their credentials to fix it. I said, but the truth of the matter is, most of us that started did not start with everything we needed. We just had some hands and some clippers.
Let me get them clippers. You put clippers in our hand, we can go.
We can find a way.
That's what's so powerful about God. It's something that God gives us. And we really can't escape it. Yeah. It's hard to escape it. He's okay. You're going to be successful. It's like he put it on us beforehand. Yeah. And I think it's tapping into it. Yeah. Because I think our children, we have to look at them and say, okay, when they playing in the yard, like your son, one of your sons, you see out there playing. Okay, look at Junior. He doing something different than the other two, and look how he's doing. And sometimes they'll be leaders and just guide them.
Yeah. You're 100% right, Doc. Man, this has been a blessing to me.
Man, bless me, Doc. Have it on here, man. It's considered me to do this.
Oh, no. This has been...
This is my first time ever doing one of these.
Oh, man, listen. This will not be your last. I wanted to reach out to brothers that I felt was going to pour back out and be honest. Okay. Within this, because one of the struggles we're dealing with, it, we go to conventions, we go to conferences. What's your house looking like, Doc? And then we do, then folk tell them, and the reality, I remember I told a friend of mine, he said, Garrett, I see you at that new church, it's beautiful, this. He said, man, you gotta have members going out the world. I said, do you want to know what's on road? Do you want to know what shows on Bible study? I said, these are two different ones. I said, two different ones. And so I wanted brothers that would be as transparent as we could be with one another and have an organic conversation about life. Mm-hmm. Because in times like this, and like you said, we've lost. Reverend Wallace just passed. We have Pastor Noble that just passed. So many giants that are leaving, that were willing to pour out to Pastor the younger ones.
I don't know if you remember him.
And so because of that, I want to create a platform that's going to live on beyond our voices. Right. That when these brothers come on, okay, that I can take that in my church. I can take the fact that I need to learn how to lead the way God has given me to lead. And not to do it per se as my pastor or my mentor. And that doesn't mean they led bad. It just means he gave me what he needed to give me.
Because it's a different time for them now. It's a different need. The people have a different need. It was a time when they needed hope. Yeah. There were times when people at churches, they just needed hope. And we down here, we struggling. Now it's almost as if we're teaching them how to manage finances and how to move around business-oriented stuff, doing different things like that. So it's a different thing, but at the end of the day, they still need Jesus. We gonna never change that, Doc. We still need Jesus.
That's the unchangeable thing, and I think one of the things that I am learning and developing is in years prior, those leaders were helping them get to live kingdom-like.
That's right.
And we're helping them understand what living kingdom-like is.
That's right.
Because it's hard to sow when you don't have nothing to sow.
Great. Yeah.
And but now that you have something to sow, I tell young folk all the time, never tear down what your parents did. If they loved you and they provided for you,
that's right,
but they weren't able to give you the financial education, that's probably because they didn't have it themselves and they were trying to make the best they had with what they had.
Right.
And I tell everybody, I said, so I praise God for those leaders that led before us because, like you said, the times have changed, but the reason we're able to reap the benefits because of them. That nice house they talk about in Phoenix City, this nice house here in Notasulga is because somebody labored and laid the groundwork, and we've been able to reap the harvest.
I thank
from
God
that.
for Pastor Smith,
and,
Pastor Owens, and those who was here before me, because the people here are just they're awesome in every way, and it's a testament to the leadership that came before me.
Listen, I thank you for this time with us today, man. Listen, I want to thank you all for joining us. I hope you all enjoyed it. This is again Pastor Gregory Sutton, one of the baddest pastors here in Notasulga. I am privileged that he allowed us to come into his home, come into the place God has asked him to shepherd and share with us today. Any last departing words?
Pastor Garrett, thank you so much for allowing me to share my knowledge, and hopefully I've blessed the ministers that are there and the people, the clergymen, and the just everyone that's under that will see this feed here, man. I thank God for you, and just keep doing what you do, man.
Thank you.
I love your spirit.